meeting here for a round table. Even if the table is not round, it's named a round table, okay? And we will discuss on a very crucial point, because everybody knows that demographic can hardly work without data. Data is really the key factor that you need at the beginning. You need data, and to get data, very often you need money. And so data and money are often linked, and we will discuss together about these two very crucial points for our future research, and mostly in the direction of the human fertility database that we have, and that will be again presented or discussed by Dmitri to start. So, Dmitri, you have the floor.
Thank you. So, actually, this round table is one of the reasons why we organize HFD symposiums. It's a possibility for us to get some feedbacks, possibility for us to understand what is important, what is not important for HFD users, what should we do next, what we shouldn't do. But this time it will be a bit unusual roundtable, because we also want to discuss an important question about funding of projects like HFD. So, but let me first remind you why HMD is a different database, and why we like it, and why we think that this is one of the main data sources for population-level research in fertility. Of course, there is a lot of data available in the internet, in the world. First of all, it's, I would say, classical data sources, publications by national statistical offices, collection of official data by Eurostat, WHO, official reports by UN. Here I combined UN and World Bank. It's not because I think that they have similar quality, I just think that it's a general approach that they collect data on official level, but actually UN data and World Bank data are absolutely of different quality, of course. So another way, so why, what's the disadvantage of classical data sources? You have access only, if you talk about national statistical offices, you have data only from one country. If you have collections like by Eurostat or by UN, there is a mixture of official data without additional information about data. So we don't have real metadata, and there is not enough attention to quality of database. The HUT provides a new standard for demographic databases, and I would say more just for scientific databases. And actually, it's expensive project that needs a lot of resources, but also provide substantial added value compared to other data sources. So, as you know, we have very detailed data, but what is more important, it's well-documented data. And of course, it's a uniform standard, it's a high quality, but we think that this documentation is extremely important, and we provide to HFD users full understanding about data which they are going to use. What can be done with this data, what cannot be done with this data. And of course, there is a huge difference between HFD and data by UN at the moment, say, because we produce all our calculations. For this purpose, we provide not only description of our methods, but also initial data used for calculations, and even more, we provide all scripts which we are using for our calculations. So if you don't like our approach, you can do your own modification of our methods and get your own estimates. So it's just, I wanted to select one short example, which will not produce any big discussion about quality of the data, but just to illustrate importance of our intervention. So this is Slovakia. The problem was that since 2012, official statistics do not include births abroad to the official births occurred abroad. So it's about 10%. Christos was able to identify this problem, and he found a way how to get this additional data. And on the graph you see difference between official estimates, and this is old, and our new age-specific fertility rates. So as you see, the difference is quite significant, and I would like to pay attention that it's not just the collection of the data. First of all, it was necessary to check the data, to identify the problem, to describe this problem in background and documentation, and finally, if there is possibility, to correct this problem. Actually, we do it for every country, and it's time-consuming work, and we clearly understand that it's impossible to do for 100 countries. So it's why we focus only on developed countries. This is the huge documentation. It's a clear advantage of the human fertility database. If you use this data, you have full documentation, full understanding what you can do, what you cannot do with this data. So, just to remind you, I already told you about our ideas what we should do in future. So we will add new countries, we will improve our methods used for data preparation. We think about work on data for developing countries, and we would like to focus in this case on a few but big countries like China and India, and maybe we will work on Latin American countries. So we will add a male fertility and human fertility collection, and we will think about regional data. We will collect this data, and we will think how to include this data. So we have a lot of challenges, but today I would like to focus just on two things. Funding of the HFD project, and not only HFD project, but in general, HFD-like projects, and promotion of such projects. Why it's so important? So, I guess many of you read this interesting paper published recently in Lancet by Global Burden of Diseases. It's about fertility by age and sex for 195 countries. So, almost all countries in the world. So, everything is known now. You may find fertility rates, total TFR, so everything what you need. So it's ready. It's kind of alternative data source. Of course, if you read this paper, you will get first of all a nice reading, and you will be really puzzled by data presented in this paper. Things like South Korea has total fertility rate now 1.2 or 1.3. Confidence limits for TFR for European countries are same as for African countries, and so on. But once again, this is data, model data, so that it's created in new reality. This is model data, but this is published in Lancet. Why it creates problem for the HFD. So if you ask for funding, if a person not being involved in fertility research, he or she will immediately tell you, look, data is there. Why do you need any money to produce this data series? Everything is here. So it's really important thing, and we actually respect the open data policy, and the idea behind of the HFD also to provide data for free of charge for everybody, and we do not want to provide a really user-friendly interface, but we provide data in form which are really ready for research. We are actually means open data. You might be a little bit puzzled that I say about open data and HFD because currently HFD restrict access to data by non-commercial use, but we are going to change it and we are following the idea of open data. But the question is who should pay for this open data? The problem is that financing of project like HFD, so it's not only HFD actually in our hand, we have also human mortality database, and we face similar problem in the HMD project. So it's quite impossible to get grants for just maintaining these databases. It's possible to get grants of course, for new research, and within this new research you can create new data sets, but because such projects needs a huge work, huge resources, they cannot be incorporated already into any grant. We cannot incorporate in any grant support of the human fertility database, say, because it needs much more resources and it can be allocated in any additional costs for open data. So this is actually not a huge problem for our project, so there is no complaint because we not lucky to have support from Max Planck Society and Vienna Institute of Demography, and these two institutions support this project, but in general there is a problem for the whole science, and it reminds me this picture, like we are scientists are seeking and doing something nice, but people who are providing money already doing their job by destroying this basis for our research. And this is a challenge which we cannot address now, but which we want to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have well understood the positive aspect of your database. Historical trends, that's very important. Reliability, comparability, that's very crucial. And metadata, because metadata are, if you go on the international database, these are always missing. Even if there are a lot of recommendations to put metadata, but it's a more difficult thing to do. But the key problem is that there is no money, and there is at the same time alternative databases that are on the road, and that may be quicker because lack of money on our side. I'm correct, because you need some money to go. So now I will ask Melinda to give her opinion on this proposal, and if you have some money in the pocket to give,
I want to show something.
Yeah.
I'll show you something as well. I just want to say a few things, and then I'll show you something that you're going to hate. So just to prepare you for that. So I'm talking, we were asked to talk for about 3 minutes or something, or three to 4 minutes about this, so I'm just going to be really quick. So I'm going to talk from the side of a funder, because I'm on the Economic and Social Research Council, the UK Research Council, and I'm also on the Dutch Research Council, so I see things go by. But I'm also going to talk from experiences that I've seen from other databases and my use as a user of the human fertility database. So I have to say I use it a lot in my publications, but what I see first from the funder side is there's an increasing pressure to reduce capital investments. So we've seen that. So these kind of investments in data sets, so you have to almost have something shiny and new. And this is a problem for these kind of resources. The other thing that I would think, if I had to give some advice, is to trace a few things. One is the impact and the usage of the data sets. So that was showed a little bit earlier, but with open APIs and things, we should be able to track how these have been used and show to funders, because they like to see how it's been used and cited. But also, I think it's really important, you showed the Lancet article you know, and it was published as if it was like some new finding, which was just amazing. I remember I went on, I've discussed on the BBC now, the evening news, you know, to just say, well, actually demographers have known this for a really long time, but, you know, thanks for this. And that's the point I'd like to really emphasize is to your, you know, your USP or unique selling point is the quality of the data. So I would shout about that a lot more because you know, what I'm about to show you too, which you'll cringe at, is, you know, you have this high quality data, I think. So the high quality account, showing your impact, I think you could do that much better. And then I have a question about your target users. And that relates to my next thing. I would argue, not only do you need to, there's two things I think you could do. One is expand to a global population, so that is new, so that's what you're saying. So that would definitely generate new funding from new sources, particularly from development. And the second thing is I think you have to expand your target users. So I think it's quite a narrow university researchers, faculties, and students. And I just wanted to show you, just to end, something you'll hate, or you'll love, or you'll know about it already. So, so we have, at Oxford, we have Max Roser, and we're announcing it in January that we're starting a big demographic center in Oxford. And one part of it is this site, Our World in Data, that you'll either like or hate. But basically the point here is this data set and these data, this is the quick and dirty data set you're talking about. I'm sorry, Max, because I see it's being filmed. So this is, these are the kind of data sets where they, you know, they've gathered it, and they have funding from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for a few million for this. And they're also working with tech companies. And they get, for this kind of data, they get 2 million visitors per month to the site. So this is an expansion of users, and the main users are largely journalists. Steve Pinker used this data set for his book Enlightenment Now. And what they do is they do, just to give you some examples, you know, they do this, and whether you like it or not, they do all of these animations over time and all of these different things that make it an experience for the user. I know you hate that, but you know, you know, it just shows these sort of long-term trends. So I just think something like this. And another thing, just to speed up the animation here, the other thing we have is the Sustainable Development Goal Tracker that you might know about too. And that does the same thing. And then, so this is just measuring all the Sustainable Development Goals per country and going through, so it's related to the same data infrastructure. And I guess the point here is you can just click on, it's very visual, and I think you could work a lot on your interface, and you can actually get grants then to expand globally, so then you go to the Bill and Melinda Gates, but you could also to increase your interface. And you know, you can see, you can go on to these different things, I don't know, and then, and you'll see that, you know, it's just got a lot more interactive things, so it's almost like an educational thing. So if you just included, sorry, it's hard to work this. If you included more narratives and more visuals, I just think that you would bring in, because journalists need this kind of data constantly, and they'll go to you instead of some of these kind of sources as well too, because you have, you can argue that you have more accurate data. Not that your data isn't good, Max. You know, I just think that these kind of things could be quite useful. But that's my points for now.
Thank you very much. I think it's good to give already some idea, go more in the open data for the global population, for the large population. That's something. I suggest to Christos to take the floor.
It's difficult to be after Melinda, but I will try to do my best. Okay. So I will be very brief in any case, and most probably I will stick a little bit on issues already raised by Melinda as regards, first of all, the impact and I think the target groups. I have no idea about financement because, in Greece things are getting worse and worse, so probably I'm not really the right person. It's the first one. So in fact, I think that according to the 4 questions, I think that there are 3 questions which are interrelated. I mean, in order to have a secure, sustainable, long-term financing, I suppose that really you have to be open, if I can say, in some issues which are not necessarily closely related to fertility. I mean by that I have just tried to connect some items because I think that probably you have to be a little bit more open, I can say, to some socio or societal and economical global developments. The first issue for me is migration. So I think that it's a very important issue in any case, and it will be in the years to come. So probably we have tried to make a balance. Here I've just put in some themes related to migration and fertility. And I know that it's very difficult to have the high quality data set on migration because of the different definitions, because of the difficulties of estimating populations, etc., etc. For instance, in migration, I see 3 points. The first one is just fertility. The second one, and probably this is a target group working more or less on aspects related to social inclusion, could be to convince someone that having figures on fertility and migration could be a good indicator or a bad indicator on integration in the host society. And the third one, it's related to second generation. I think more or less we are at the same line. The second topic, of course, is gender issues. Demographers, they are working more and more on that topic. Yesterday, Dmitri talked about male fertility. I think it's an important issue in any case, to try to develop a little bit more. But also, I would say that probably to stick a little bit more on differentiations as regards employment, education, or even try to combine, I will come back to that at the end of my presentation, to combine education, employment, and put it in a more, and try to tell to someone that men and women, as compared to education, employment, and fertility, they are different and probably they will continue to be. I think also, Francesco talked a little bit yesterday about changes in the labor market. I think that also, even the fact that we are demographers, I think that changes in the labor market is a very important issue in any case, which more or less could be related to fertility, I would say. And there I see 3 subtopics. Digitalization is very important. Also try to see what happened in human and fertility behavior as related to precariousness and new forms of employment, and also the important topic of shrinking labor force in a context of accelerating demographic aging. I'm still short on time. Just some words about new methods, as Dmitri raised this point yesterday. I think that, in my mind, the new methods could be much more oriented on risk population and population exposures. I think that here there is really a good field for further research. And here the idea is that probably in the years to come, there will be several countries for which census will be really a good memory from the past. I think that in the UK they have decided not to have a general census, so it means that it makes much more difficult to have robust population estimates. And also in several countries, take the case of the US for instance, you can use ACS or current population survey instead of using, data issued from censuses. So I think that here the challenge is to have robust population estimates based on low-scale surveys and not really on census. It's not an easy task in any case. Just to give you an example, in particular for Europe, the labor force survey, as we saw this morning, it's a very important, I would say, source of information, But I think that we have really to try to develop much more, if I can say, sophisticated methods to have risk populations issued from the labor force survey. It's not necessarily the case actually. And the advantage of the labor force survey is that you can have fertility and also single characteristics, or you can even combine characteristics. I mean to see, for instance, if fertility behavior is different between men and women, if you take into account at the same time education and employment. So I think that the point for population estimates in methodological point of view, I think it is the most important in any case. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and now Diego will close the presentation story.
So thank you very much, everyone, and thank you very much again to the Vienna Institute of Demography to have me here to be again in a round table. And thank you for giving to everyone the journal with our graph on the cover. Yesterday, Dmitri was a little bit provocative in one of the phrases that he was quoting on Carroll's work, Alice in Wonderland. So I just decided to work on that with that title. And with all the cartoons and things that are coming with the book through the looking glass. So he was referring to this quote that we need to be moving faster and faster to catch up with all the developments that are going on in the world. And then going through all these theories and so on, I found this Red Queen hypothesis that is an evolutionary hypothesis which proposed that organisms must constantly adapt, evolve, and proliferate, not merely to gain reproductive advantage, but also simply to survive. So we are talking here about the Red Queen's race for the human fertility database. And this is really important because right now we are in a change of paradigm and a change on the data production and property and data property models. Because we were living in a world where we have the citizen and the public administration. Now we are entering, we are having data providers who are just connecting directly with the citizen. And what we have now in the model here is a connection between the three parties where there is a kind of economic interchange. The citizen needs to pay to the data provider is giving some things to the citizen. And public administration will need to use this data provider's data, and the data providers, probably they will give the data. But the case will be that they are not going to be giving that data that long anymore, and they will be providing data directly to the citizen, and the citizen will say, okay, if I'm receiving the data directly from the data provider, why I need to sustain an expensive administrative statistical office or statistical institutes all around Europe. And so now we are facing a kind of important challenge. It's not only human fertility database, it's not only other kind of databases, it's as well that the Institute of Statistics, they need to fight for showing up their importance. We always are thinking on big data as a kind of scary thing that is going to substitute the data that we are using. But in a way, we need this kind of big data to have new and innovative data sources, especially for monitoring fertility, including short-term fluctuations. I mean, Thomas was just showing that we need this kind of data, for example, for the Great Recession. And we need to have this complementary additional information to have a nowcasting, just to know what is happening right now before the public statistics are coming. So I consider these soft measures that are just additional to the data that we have. We can work with other kind of data like Twitter, but Twitter is not anymore what it used to be. So the data that is coming now to Twitter is coming mostly from Instagram. It's not coming from tweets from the Twitter, especially from the change of the rules in 2015. And we are facing other possibilities and dangers with the linkage of social media data to administrative register that is coming as on stage. And I think that it could be quite problematic. So we have competition, but we have competition from data banks, data archives, data infrastructure. Melinda was showing one of them that have a national or multinational level. They work like in television. You have like a Netflix, you have other ones, and they are competing to have the best content or the best products inside these channels. And then we have data journalism or non-specialized users. And they need data and they need to produce news all the time. And then they are using data, sometimes without thinking what is the data. So as a famous British gardener, Capability Brown was saying, there is capability for improvement. We need to have a new continuous diffusion of products, more accessible to general public. A very good example of that is iPhones, who we just showing new products all the time. The latest one, it was this Abacus kind of example that they were presenting 1 or 2 weeks ago. We need to have data visualization, even we can just don't like it in some cases, but we need to have that combined with quality analysis. We need to have interoperability within multiple databases. So we need to have our database ready to be linked with other quality data. So it's adding value to your data. And that, I think, in demography, we can do that. And it could grow exponentially the things that we can do. And we need to teach and bring on board data journalists to use our data. So they will publicize our data. So time. If you are asking the statistical offices, they will ask you that they want data for now or for the future. But obviously, I'm coming from historical demography, so I will tell you that we will need to have data for the past, and we need to have individual level data, longitudinal data going backwards as longer as possible. There are very important projects already that are doing this. This is in Scotland going to mid-19th century, the CLIP project in the US, the Utah Population Database, the LIFER project, the EVAL-SAC project going back to 17th century, or SweetPop going back to 17th century, to present, linking past and present. I think that we need to start thinking on that. If you are thinking on spatial data, or you see the image, you know what I'm going to say, but if possible, it's very nice to work with nuts, but don't only go nuts. If possible, go down to grid level information. So an example of this is the work that the Andalusian people are doing with the grid, with male fertility at 1 kilometer grid level, or going down to even 250 square meters fertility level for the region. So thank you very much. I think it's the time, so thanks a lot.
We will go quite quickly. We will go quickly to the question and the succession of the audience. I will ask everybody to be very short, to be positive on how to find some money or how to develop the project, and not to spend 5 minutes to explain this, because we have just 10 minutes remaining. So, the floor is open. Don't be anxious to say that you have some possibility. Please.
Well, I have it's more like a suggestion in terms of future funding and future developments of HMD. Probably you all heard of Generations and Gender program. It's a social science infrastructure. They have not only microdata but also macro level data, contextual database. And I want to ask you, why don't you join forces? Why don't you actually merge with them, and in order to get maybe some EU level funding like structural funds, which will be a main source of funding for different data sources, I think, in the future, and just become a part of the ESPI application. I know that they are not preparing for ESPI Rome their application, and they will. I think they will need some help. And if you join forces, maybe you could have a better opportunity to get EU money for those kind of, as you actually produce same data in terms of aggregate level data and then their contextual level database. So this is just my suggestion.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Another question, another suggestion? Please. Nobody is interested to support, bring some money for Dmitri?
If there's somebody who just to pay for our work.
Yes. Yeah. I would like to know if there is no possibility looking to the Arab country. The Arab country does not have money to support you. They are supporting a lot of things already. No? We never tried on this direction.
Soccer is more interesting than...
So our reputation is more important for us than money.
Okay, so we have one suggestion there. Yes.
Okay. No, I just wanted to have. I'm not sure I grasp the difference between infrastructure projects. So, what would you have to do to get money for an infrastructure project? Would you have to say, well, I'm setting up a completely new database, or would you say, I'm setting up a completely new, infrastructure to host something that already exists, and then I add something into it? So, I improve for instance, I improve the website and whatever. I put the data I already have, and I extend also for having data of developing countries or whatever. Would it be an option, like, because I don't know this project, would it be an option just to integrate what you have into a new infrastructure that you could sell as a project? So that's a question model.
Dmitri, you have maybe some answer to the two questions that have been raised.
First of all, thank you for all presenters for nice ideas. Even if in some cases it was more like research programs than ideas about development of the HMD. And let me start from Melinda about your comments, who is our target user, and why not to have more fun interface. So we know exactly who is our target users. This is research. And we focus only on research. Data should be for research. So it's main idea of the database. And actually, this is why we try to keep the interface as simple as possible. Actually, our idea is to give a possibility to HMD users to get any data which we have in the database just in 3 clicks. If you work with Eurostat data, you may remember how difficult to just specify a request to this database, and finally you will get data do not exist. So this is a real alternative, and actually we also try to avoid any communication with our interface. We provide possibility just to download data. So because of our target user. But I like this funny interface. It would be, I guess it could help in fundraising, but we are in a good situation at the moment. And actually what we wanted to discuss, not how to collect money for the HMD, but a general support of such kind of projects, which needs annual support. So, about any infrastructures and joining any program, actually it's a good idea to combine the work, but unfortunately the coordination of such work would take much more resources than we get. So this is a problem. Actually the main question is still open because there is no idea who should pay for open data, who should support this because as a scientific society, we need data for our research. We can produce this data. But the main disadvantage of the HLD, as far as I understand, that we are not able to update in time the database. And resources for this are needed, of course. And it's like somebody should pick. Of course, now we are in a good situation and we have possibility to do this. But if we have similar project or which will be not supported by Max Planck, what will be next? Thomas, would you like to add something?
There's the mic here. Okay. I think we may need to discuss a number of things between us as well, because actually I'm always thinking that we should go a little bit broader, so that could be something up for a discussion. I think we should eventually continue thinking about improving the types of visualization, graphics we can provide, user-friendliness, which we did a little bit when doing HLD Lite. You can get all the basic data in Excel, which was one step ahead to give users easier access. And I would go beyond what Dima says. I think it would be great if non-researchers use HLD, at least the basic indicators. If websites like Gapminder, if the big websites trying to reconstruct everything in the world, if that stupid article in Lancet would go to the HLD, they would get many things right. They wouldn't say that the lowest fertility on Earth is in Cyprus, which it isn't. Cyprus has TFR of 1.3. They would probably learn that Korea has far lower fertility, and they wouldn't put the confidence interval around Japanese fertility 1.1 to 1.5, because we know it much more precisely than that. So I think we should also be open to, strictly speaking, non-researchers who are ready to look for good data and use them.
Christos.
Just a point of your comment about merging probably data with other sources. I think that we have really to distinguish between the starting point for a database and the continuation of the database. I know very much the situation about GGS. We have tried to be involved in Greece without success in any case. Because for many projects, as is the case, for instance, for the Share project, is the case, for instance, for the European Social Survey project, in fact, you have financial resources at the beginning to start the problem, to start the project, and after you need national funding. And that is a very important issue. Most of the time you have countries which they can face with that, and you have countries which cannot continue. So you do not really have consecutive waves of very important, I would say, research. And here you have really, we are talking a little bit, in a different level, because as far as I understand, we are talking much more about merging and having already existing data. We have discussed with Christos and Thomas about Greece. We succeeded in finding data, already existing data. So no, we have not been charged about that in any case. So if you would like to have new data, you need money, and the problem is not to find money just for 1 year, but to try to really have this continuously in time. And that it's not easy, because at the starting point you can find an international funding, but to continue that national funding is very important. Thank you.
Just we will reach quickly the end of the session, but if there is another proposal in the audience, we are ready. Yes, please.
Just to strengthen a little bit what Thomas just said. I work also at the university as an academic teacher, and I use HFD a lot, but for myself. I never ask students, the BA level students, the master level students, they're not demography students, but they are quantitative sociology students. I never ask them to use the HFD have to register. It all makes, I mean, I prefer to refer them to Eurostat or to OECD database, but not to HFD. And I use it myself, I produce graphs myself and show them to students, but in this processed form. And so most of my students don't even, unless they really read the sources under my graphs, they don't know about the HFD data, the HFD, because, well, I find it too complicated to show them and to use, for them to use actually, and not but too complicated, also not appealing, and I prefer to use others, refer them to sources where they are more attractive to them and also easier to use.
Okay, thank you. And to be short, you want it to be more sexy. It should be more sexy.
The database?
Yes. Yes, thank you.
We're more 21st century, right?
Yeah.
Not 1990s.
And your students are using the human mortality database.
No, not really. I also process everything for them.
The same problem, yes.
A little bit. But it looks very similar.
Are you in the department of demography or?
Sorry?
Are
you in the department of demography?
No, sociology.
Yes. No, but it's needed to look for a broader,
broaden the audience, I mean,
including the global population. The open data is for everybody, so maybe that some more attractive page. Yes, please, Melinda.
And you know, I just maybe it is. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, I don't think it's dumbing it down or making it sexy or cute or fun. That's not it. It's making it accessible and visual.
Yeah.
So it's really not worse to make something more accessible to people. So if you can see it, so we've all produced graphs, but you know, a lot of modern databases produce those graphs already. They produce it in a graph form or in a map form, and then you just click on it and you download it. You know, so I guess I would just like to support you, and it isn't a dumbing down of anything, it's a visualization, and that's what everybody's doing, and it's much more accessible. And once journalists use it and other people use it, you'll just get more usage and more support, and that will bring funding. So I just support your point. Yeah.
Especially that nowadays it's not very expensive also.
No.
It's not rocket science.
Get somebody to do that for people.
You have a reaction for that, Dmitri?
I have a reaction.
Yeah, I think we should think about it, and it's nice to see that Alexia seems to be very positive about it, and maybe VIT will provide the resources to produce this nice graph interface. No, but seriously, yes, it's nice to have such interface. I completely agree. But when we have a choice between data and interface, our usual choice is data. And Tomasz does not agree fully, but so website and Rostock.
I think data without users are useless, so we have to work on it a bit.
So we have more than 6,000 users. I think we cover fertility somehow.
Christos.
Okay. I totally agree with your point. I'm a university professor in the Department of Social Policy in Greece. It is true that we have never used this database because the students are not demographers. For instance, we use Eurostat database and we use even EPUB's micro database just to prepare a presentation. That was my point. I think that if you really need to have a broader impact, you have to open it in other topics as well related to fertility. That is it. Thank you.
A question there. Wait.
Just a comment that you can have both very good data and sexy interface when you look at icons, for example, that offer you can go on your smartphone, extract some aggregate level statistics, browse through the variables, through the data, generate your results, and it's very rich database, but at the same
computer. I started from never having got into the human fertility database, and I actually managed to log in, register, get a password, log in, and download some data in 5 minutes. So it is reasonably accessible. It's not, I agree it's not sexy, it doesn't have that, but it's possible to get in. I then spent the rest of the last 20 minutes thrashing around Eurostat's website, trying to find some fertility data, and I still haven't got it. And I'm just going around in circles. So I don't know what you're telling our students about Eurostat, but they're not doing better than I am. So I guess I'd like to say, you may feel a little bit under fire, but you've actually got something which at least is accessible, and if you made it sexier or diagrams or graphs or visually more attractive, you know, it could be really very, very useful.
Yes.
So I'd
Just to add one layer of that is more accessible for the open public. And then if demographer wants to go and see more in detail, they will look the data, but at least they have some maps and graphs that will come directly, and that you may even download on your mobile if you are in a conference. Yes, I have one question there.
Yes, my name is David from Barcelona. I worked in iTunes for many years, and it's true that now they have a big budget, but at the beginning the budget was very small. So the good thing was the idea, you know, and this idea of sharing the data with everybody and opening it and so on. But iTunes has a product that not many people know that it's connected, but it's called Social Explorer, and it's in the US. And they have a very nice website where you can send them the data, and they will upload it for you, and they will create beautiful maps and graphs. And now we're doing it for Spain, and I have already, one of the main banks in Spain is going to pay us a little bit of money to upload data into Social Explorer. The programmers are in Sarajevo. There are 30 persons, and they're open to upload your data for free, and then you can decide the way you can disseminate it. In the US, users can pay like $50 or $60 per year, and they have access to all the contents, and there you find data on elections, health, demography, and everything. So my recommendation would be that if you have data, don't spend time building your own interface that you will have to hire lots of people. Use the platforms that they already exist, and they provide beautiful graphs, beautiful tables, and so on. Call them and just negotiate something, and they are open, and they say, if you upload the data, we won't charge you anything. You can decide whether you already have it, you wanted to have it open for a fee, and I think maybe we can show it now online, but they have a beautiful platform, and they are open to collaborate with everybody.
So that's another opportunity, but for sure you have still to keep your hand on these data to be sure that what you will put on graph and so on is correct. You cannot give them the data and
No, you have to
follow the story.
Sure, they just prepare data, you give them the codes and everything, and they just upload it. But you are in control of it.
Yes, you are the owner of the data.
Yeah, you are the owner.
So, any other suggestion, Thomas?
Just a last reflection, because I think it's very well taken, the comments you are giving, and we will discuss a lot about visualization, accessibility of the data. Maybe we will expand the easy indicators. And one thing, I was surprised that no one came up with that, but we keep discussing now and then, and it came up in the last HAP symposium that our data are not sufficiently up to date. And in the world, when everyone wants to get data for 2017, this Lancet article provides it miraculously even for Angola and South Sudan. I think people are sometimes disappointed when our data end up in 2014. So we will still seek for the ways how to provide at least the latest indicators, the summary things, up to date, being at least as good as Eurostat is, because this is when people will like to use more of what we produce.
That's good. So think that you have some good proposal to work. Yes. So we will close this round table. It was not a round table, but it was round table.
But it's closed in any case.
Yes, that's right. So thank you very much. Thank you for everything.